An NYPD officer and three others were shot and killed by a gunman who stormed a midtown skyscraper and later turned the gun on himself, NYPD officials said. The 27-year-old gunman, identified as Shane Tamura, barged into the 44-story building, which houses NFL headquarters and Blackstone, armed with a rifle and opened fire during the evening rush. The NYPD are still investigating why the former high school football player with some history of mental health issues drove from Las Vegas to New York City to commit this heinous act of violence, and has promised to update the public as more information becomes available.
Co-founder and CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, Chris Nowinski, joins me now for more. Chris, thanks so much for coming on. Police sources tell ABC News that this suspect had a note in his pocket claiming he suffered from CTE. Police also say he had a documented mental health history and that he played high school football. What was your reaction when you heard about all of this?
Well, my heart goes out to the victims and their families. And when I read about it, I immediately thought of the fact that we've seen a lot of this with former football players. We think of Aaron Hernandez or Phillip Adams or Javon Belcher, all NFL players in their 20s and 30s that were involved in murder, suicides. All of them had CTE. So I understand why this conversation is happening. And it's something that we need to investigate further because it's becoming more and more of a public health issue because we've seen this over and over and over again.
Now, CTE can only be diagnosed through an autopsy after death. So we don't yet know if he did have it. Obviously, he didn't know either at the time. But what are the early symptoms of CTE and how do you recognize and treat it?
Well, yeah, I think the question of whether or not he has CTE, we can look to a study we published in 2023 where we looked at the brains of 92 former football players who all died before 30. It's important for people to know that 31% of the ones who played through high school did have the disease. It's also important for people to know there are 15 at least other types of brain damage that are associated with traumatic brain injuries and repeated traumatic brain injuries that football players can receive. When they have these brain injuries, they can damage the frontal lobe, which is involved with aggression and judgment. You can see damage in the amygdala, which controls understanding threats. And so it's not a surprise as a neuroscientist that people who have frontal lobe damage and damage to their amygdala can act out like this and have behaviors like this.